Hi everyone. We're going to start today with an introduction to ethics, particularly with professional organizations. So let's talk about the professional organizations that would represent you in computer science and software engineering. This means we're going to cover the organizations, the responsibilities that you would have as part of these organizations and as members of these communities, and the principles that these organizations attempt to uphold. So the organizations that you're going to be primarily interested in as computer scientists and software engineers is IEEE, or the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. This is primarily for associated engineering fields and not for computer scientists or software engineers, but you'll see a lot of research being posted into these groups, and a lot of computer scientists and software engineers will take part of these groups as well. ACM is the Association of Computing Machinery and is the primary organization for computer scientists and software engineers. ACM is also a proponent of computer science research, so you'll see a lot of research posted to that group as well. IEEE and ACM also do work together in some cases to provide joint research efforts and joint events for their members. Both of them have their own code of ethics, however, and members agree to abide by these codes of ethics when they agree to be part of these organizations. Now, these organizations do have fees and other things associated with them when you become a member, but they also provide you with networking events and conferences that you can attend either at a steeply discounted rate or for free as being a member. The code that they provide, their code of ethics, is supplemented with guidelines which aid decision making within their organizations, but also with complaints against others within the organization. So as a member, if you make a complaint about another person in the organization, they will judge the complaint based off of the code of ethics, but also based off of the guidelines that they have that supplement that code of ethics. Now, the Code of Ethics for IEEE and ACM can both be found online. The ACM Code of Ethics can be found at ethics.acm.org, and the Code of Ethics for IEEE can be found at www.ieee.org/about/governance/p7-8.html. The general principles that they try to abide by in their code of ethics are as follows. The first is contribute to society and human well-being. We want to use our skills in our profession, our career opportunities, to give back to the society that we're a part of. We should not be using these skills to hurt or endanger our communities or other humans around the world. Next, we should avoid harm. This goes very much with the previous principle that I mentioned, which is contributing to society and to help other human beings. But we also want to avoid harm. We want to avoid hurting people as much as we want to try to help others. We should also be honest and trustworthy. So this means that as a professional, your word means a lot. When you say something, you should follow through with what you said, whether that's agreeing to do work or agreeing to uphold others' statements as well. Be fair and take action to not discriminate. This is another principle of their code of ethics, and this one's a lot harder to follow through with than you might originally think. So to be fair and take action to not discriminate means you have to actively work to provide anti-discrimination practices in the work that you complete. A good example of how computer scientists fail to do this on a regular basis is with visual recognition, so particularly face recognition. Face recognition software frequently doesn't recognize people of darker skin tones, and it doesn't work for them, whether this is on a criminal level, so people using facial recognition to try to identify criminals. There's actually recent cases of this being a problem in areas in the US, or if this is software meant to enable people to use software in a different format. So a good example of this would be when a facial recognition program is being used to identify eye movement to enable people who can't use a mouse or keyboard normally due to a disability or due to some other restriction that they have, to use their eye movements to move the mouse around instead. For people with darker complexions, this tends to not work effectively, and it not only excludes them because of their racial background, but also because of their disability. So you have to take work to actively prevent discrimination, not just be not discriminatory. All right, so this is an active thing you have to do in order to not discriminate. It's not something you do passively. Respect the work required to produce new ideas. This mostly means abiding by copyright and licensing that you find online. So try not to steal stuff, particularly software, since that's your area of expertise. And try to make sure that you use attribution when needed for your sources or for the code that you're using, or even if it's images in a slide deck. Next, respect privacy. So this means that when people opt out of metrics of tracking, that you respect that. You don't let them opt out, but then still track them. There's other ways that respecting privacy can come through in your particular career fields, and we'll talk more about that later in the semester. Next, honor confidentiality. So you want to make sure that you're honoring any confidentiality you have, not only with your user base, but also with the people that you work for, right? So as an IT professional, you might have access to people's secure files in order to fix their machines. You need to make sure that you're not breaking any confidentiality by either seeing those or reporting those to another individual within your organization. Next, let's talk about professional responsibilities. So what are your responsibilities as a professional? A lot of these will line up with the code of ethics principles that we just talked about, but the first is strive to achieve high quality. So you don't want to just deliver your software, you want to deliver high quality software. Not only does it do the job, but it does the job well. This goes hand in hand with maintaining high standards. So part of doing this is actually doing code reviews. You'll see yourselves doing this a lot in this chosen profession that you have. You will do code reviews of your own code, of others' code, in your organization, in your chosen career. And this is really quite normal, and it's important to take responsibility when you do these kind of actions, when you do these kinds of reviews, in order to help maintain high standards, not only in your programming, but also in the way that you communicate with others. Know and respect existing rules. So for example, you need to know the rules about GDPR and respect them and make sure that you're following them within your software as you need to. Not just that, however, you also need to know and respect the rules of your organization, of your industry, and other rules that might apply to you, whether that is the legal binding of your country or of a country where you deploy your software. You should also accept and provide appropriate professional review. This goes back to those code reviews that we were talking about before. You want to make sure that you are respectful to each other, but also that you can take reviews professionally and in a respectful manner. But this key word, appropriate, is also really important. Appropriate means that you're not giving reviews outside of the bounds of your expertise. It also means that you're not reviewing somebody based off of things that do not matter. A good example of this is that you should not be reviewing someone's code and then mention something about their appearance. When you're doing a code review, it should focus on their code, not any other aspect of that person that you're dealing with. Give comprehensive and thorough evaluations. This is something that you'll find yourself doing is eventually you're going to be asked to evaluate your peers. You'll actually be asked to evaluate each other in this course, and that's going to be a good practice for when you get into industry, when ranking each other or measuring each other is an important part of understanding each other's skill sets and an important part of understanding how to manage people on a team. So don't be surprised if you're asked to evaluate each other when you get into a professional environment in industry, as that's a relatively normal thing for our field to do. You should also only perform work in areas that you are competent. This means that when you are outside of your depth, that you let somebody know. You might still be asked to complete that work, but be given more time to do it. Now, you will be asked to do things and learn on the job. Don't be surprised when that happens, but you should be competent in that area regardless, because you should know how to learn and pick up those skills in an appropriate way. You should also foster public awareness and understanding. So for things like security issues, privacy issues, social media, you are all technologically savvy people and should be able to express why these types of things are important, not only to your peers and other people who might be technologically savvy, but also to people like your grandparents or those who have no technological understanding whatsoever. It's an important part of your responsibilities as a professional because you will be considered an expert and your opinion is going to hold a lot of weight. So make sure that when you're doing this with the backing of at least the majority of understanding in your field, and you're being honest and truthful in any public awareness that you put out there, either to your own family or to others in the society at large. Next, access resources only when authorized. So this means don't access either hardware resources or software resources when you're not allowed to, but also accessing the appropriate documentation when you are authorized to do so. This is really important, particularly for folks who are going into the cybersecurity field, as you'll have access to a lot of documents that maybe you don't actually need access to, or because you'll be working with military institutions who have a lot of confidentiality agreements in place. And finally, design and implement systems that are secure. Now, this is really important for everyone, not just those in cybersecurity, but it's especially important for those in cybersecurity as that is your primary role. However, security is something that everyone is responsible for and not just those with security background. Now, next, we're going to talk a little bit about the introduction to ethics and ethical theories from the book, so make sure you watch the next video for that information.